welcome to Investment Trends. Now, this program is brought to you in conjunction with the Zambia Development Agency and ZNBC. Now, the performance of macroeconomic indicators together with policy and legal framework have a very significant bearing on investment and trade levels. GDP growth rate, inflation, commercial bank rates, exchange rates for major convertible currencies, and general commodity prices are some factors that have a bearing on investment and the work of the agency. In view of this, our discussion today on the program will focus on the country's investment climate and the ease of doing business. ZDA, as the investment promotion arm of government, has a significant role to play in ensuring the investment mood in the country is just right. In that regard, I'm joined by Mr. Collins Sifafula, who is the Manager Research at the Zambia Development Agency. Hello and welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much, Chilofia. I'm impressed that we are seeing young journalists taking keen interest in business and economic related issues rather than just restricting to politics.
That's right. I mean, it's our role.
Sure.
We all have a role to play in ensuring that we see the country and the economy doing better than it was the last few years. But in talking about our theme today, Mr. Sifafula, we're looking at the climate, investment climate in Zambia, but also the ease of doing business. So somebody out there might be thinking, what does investment climate mean? What is ease of doing business? Just break down these terms for us before we get into them.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Chilofia. Actually, you know that the investment climate, basically, it means we are just talking about the laws, regulations that make doing business easy, whether for our small-scale enterprises or the big guys. So we are looking at those laws and regulations, what are the procedures, what are the costs, and so on. In addition to that, another key interest that when you are looking at the investment climate is the way the economy is performing in terms of, as measured by key macroeconomic indicators. Right. These are variables like inflation rate, how is it shooting up, down, is there stability? We are talking about interest rates, how high, how low they are. We are talking about government debt, and many other factors.
All right, and the ease of doing business?
And the ease of business, we are now looking at the extent to which it's easy to conduct business without having to be subjected to so many time-consuming regulations and so on, and also the cost that involves for a particular investor. For instance, if you want to invest in any particular industry, how much would it cost for you to get a license, a permit, or authorization from state government regulators? All
right, so now that we have that out of the way, we understand where we are and we're on the same page. How would you describe the investment climate in this country?
I believe Zambia as a domestic, as a country, we are doing fine, relatively, comparatively, because if you are talking whether you are doing bad or good, you must compare yourselves. Right. Zambia is known as a highly liberalized economy. Liberalized meaning that there are no state controls, like maybe if I would cite an example, prior to the country coming into multi-party economy, we had a situation where the government, for instance, if you wanted to sell cooking oil, for instance, or whatever product you are selling, they would set a price on that. That does not exist in Zambia. In addition to that, if you have made your profits, any company, your business, large or small, when you have made profits, you are free if you wanted to externalize the profits, provided you have adhered to government regulations, statutory obligation like payment of tax, the fees or commissions that relate to operating a business. So in a way, we are relative compared to some countries. I don't want to mention some of the giant economies in the Southern Africa where it's not easy to remit your profits out of the country.
All right. So in that regard then, how important is your work at the Zambia Development Agency? In how important is it in facilitating this particular issue to happen, especially for those who want to invest and want to know where they can invest in, what they can invest in?
I should start by mentioning that we have three core divisions at Zambia Development Agency. The first one I would want to start mentioning about is the Enterprise Development Division. This deals with our SMEs, our small and medium enterprises. So in terms of facilitation, most of our small-scale enterprises may not easily access finance to some of these banks that we have. So ZDA has entered into some memorandum of understanding with the specific banks, so that at least the interest rates that would be charged will be moderate rather than following the market rate. There would also, another challenge that our SMEs have is really in the area of preparing what are termed as bankable business plans. Normally when you ask for a loan at a bank, they'll ask you to submit a business plan. Now, ZDA comes in to help those in preparing such a bankable business plan. Now, another area is, where our SMEs really have a problem is securing markets for their products. So we have a business linkages program which links these SMEs, our small and medium enterprises, to key multinational corporations. I can cite examples like, for instance, if you talk of Lusaka, they are linked to Pick and Pay, Woodlands, maybe Zambia Breweries, for those that are producing products that Zambia Breweries are looking for. If you go to Southern Province, for instance, I'm just giving you examples, we have linked our SMEs to Zambia Sugar, we have linked our SMEs to Sun International in Livingstone. On the mining, we have done the same, linking our SMEs to the giant mining projects. That is the enterprise development which deals with, that's how we facilitate, that deals with the SMEs. Now we have also on export development. This is another second core division. Here basically is to promote, we are promoting Zambia's non-traditional exports. Now, if I say non-traditional exports, this is another technical concept. Maybe I have to, what are these non-traditional exports? Basically, that any export that you sell out of Zambia other than the traditional copper and cobalt. Yeah, for instance, we sell electricity, we sell various goods, agricultural products and manufactured products. Yeah, so you would find that our enterprise development, because we are promoting our non-traditional exports, they will undertake market surveys, market research in some of the neighboring countries or even outside the region to identify where can our products be sold, and also they're interested in widening the number of non-traditional exports we can export. And from time to time when they attend these international trade exhibitions, they'll just make sure they arrange to travel with some of our local producers where they're large, so that they're able to exhibit their products. Okay. That is in the area of non-traditional exports. The third area is investment promotion. For these big guys maybe who may be coming to Zambia and they may require, we facilitate, for instance, instead of them moving from one state institution to another, like immigration department, we would have the forms, we facilitate, we do the paperwork on their behalf, and they're able to. So that's the area of facilitation, making it easier for our business enterprises. All right.
So is Zambia's growth rate in terms of investment, in terms of the economy as well, is that where we are right now, if you had to rate it, is it good enough for the investors coming and doing business in this country?
Well, I'll tell you, last year, 2016, we recorded a growth rate of 3.5% against a target of 5%. But you see, at that rate, if you go to Europe, you go to America, you find that their economies are growing in the range of 1 to 2, between 2, below 3%. So to that, in that extent, we are doing fine, except of course, this rate has dropped. I mean, 5-10 years back ago, our average rate was in the range of 6.5. But of course, due to factors which you may be aware of, at the domestic level, at country level, we had the electricity crisis, the load shedding, which some companies actually had to reduce production as much as 30%. Yeah, and then on the external factor, we had the declining trend mainly in copper prices and some of these non-traditional exports so that explained. But really, the future now, you can, I mean, if you look at what is happening to the copper price now, it's actually on the rise, mainly on account of China's demand. So you have seen the kwacha is actually appreciating of late. So really, the prospects seem to be bright for the country.
All right. Yeah. Prospects seemingly looking bright.
Yeah.
Zambia recently hosted the Ease of Doing Business Initiative Conference in Livingstone that brought together many African investors, those who are looking to invest in the country. And it was looking at business reforms for industrialization, value addition, and job creation. Comment and make us understand why it's important for a nation like Zambia to host such kinds of events.
Actually, I would say we were honored to host that conference. The previous one was hosted by Kenya in Nairobi, and I can assure you that World Bank is a high reputable organization, no doubt about it. They conduct these ease of doing business surveys in 190 countries, and you can benchmark yourself how you are performing on those surveys. Those surveys, basically, they look at the reform program. What changes are we making to improve the investment climate, which I've already defined? So for us, we use that opportunity really to market the country. We went there with investment promotion toolkits, as well as some of our SMEs and the big, large-scale guys were also exhibiting at the conference.
All right.
Sure.
Well, this is Investment Trends, and if you're just joining us, welcome to the program. We are looking at Zambia's investment climate as well as the ease of doing business in this country. I am speaking to Mr. Collins Sifafula, who is the Manager Research at the Zambia Development Agency. But we take a short break, and in this particular clip, we get to speak to the Business Review Regulatory Agency to hear how they facilitate the ease of doing business in Zambia.
If you look at the current doing business report published by the World Bank, Zambia is ranked 98 in the whole world. But if you look at the status of the country in terms of its ranking under the various categories, you will discover that we are actually doing much better in the region. If you look at, firstly, under the category of starting a business, Zambia is ranking 7th in the continent. And under there, this is where we are looking at ensuring that business regulatory services are easily accessible and there is efficiency in terms of delivery. We have a program under the regulatory services centers where we ensure that all business regulatory services can be accessed under one location. And beyond that, we're also looking at streamlining the regulatory procedures so that it is easier for me as a business to comply and it's not too expensive for me to comply. There is currently in existence 4 regulatory services centers. There is one in Kitwe, in Lusaka, in Chipata, and in Livingstone. Beyond putting regulatory services in one location, we are also looking at how can we further streamline the services by ensuring that these services can, in the near future, be accessible through an online system or an automated system, which will make it more efficient.
Welcome back to Investment Trends. We continue on in the studio speaking to Mr. Collins Sifafula, who is the Manager Research at the Zambia Development Agency. Remember, we're looking at the investment climate and the ease of doing business. We were talking about the importance of Zambia hosting such conferences, such as those ones, the ones that you hosted in Livingstone, the ease of doing business, with organizations such as the World Bank, which obviously has a number of footprints in over 190 countries. In terms of just sort of rubbing shoulders with the kind of institutions such as that, how important is that in moving Zambia's economy?
Well, like you have rightly put it, World Bank is a well-renowned multilateral institution. They conduct these surveys on ease of doing business in 190 countries globally. And the major focus, they focus at reform areas. There are basically 11 reform areas which they look at, for which the interest really is basically to understand what are the procedures, regulations, and what does it cost to have certain authorization, permits, and licenses issued by various businesses across the sector.
Right. So they also help in, when it comes to rankings. You did mention that they produce rankings of different countries and how they're doing business and the ease of doing business in those countries. So we've seen this in Forbes, we've seen this in the SADC region, we've seen this in COMESA. But how does this help the country when you are put on a list of, say, top 5 countries of ease of doing business, top 10 countries, what does this do for our image, our brand as Zambia?
Well, basically, like I have said, they are looking at the various reform areas. And then they benchmark from one country to another. How is it? What does it cost? And so on. And then you are ranked out of the 190 companies. For instance, if I can just give some specific examples. In Africa, the entire continent with 54 sovereign countries, Zambia is coming 7th position. Now, 7th out of 54 countries, honestly speaking, it simply means we are among the top 10 best reformers on the continent. We are beaten, I can give you a specific example. In North Africa, there are only 2 countries which beat us, that is Tunisia and Morocco. West Africa, none. East Africa, we have Rwanda beating us. Rwanda is really doing well in that area. In the Southern African countries, it's Botswana, Mauritius, and South Africa. So within SADC, you could say we are ranking 4th. Within COMESA, we are ranking 5th, basically because of Rwanda on top there, who is a member of COMESA.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
In terms of just making sure that we have this kind of information available, even for World Bank, when they come, they have this kind of information available. How important is research in terms of evaluating and monitoring the growth of Zambia's economic growth?
Now, research, I would mention to you and even to the listeners out there that, it's a very key component for any institution, because decision-making by whether it's directors or managers must be evidence-based. In short, you have gone out, done your survey, and you see the trend maybe in certain factors, which factors are performing well and which factors are not performing. For those that are not performing, then you think of what interventions can we do to improve in such an area. So it's really very, very, very important. For instance, again, when it comes to monitoring and evaluation, we have a ZDA, a current strategic plan, which is running from 2016. It started last year, a 5-year program up to 2020. And out of those, in that strategic plan, we have 13 strategic objectives. And when we were doing a review, as at close of business on December last year, we had performed well in 11 of the 13 strategic objectives, implying an 85% rate, which is, I believe, is quite good. There are 2 areas basically where we didn't perform well. That is in decentralization. Of course, the investors out there expecting us to our presence in all the 10 provinces of Zambia. The other area is international marketing and networking. And really the best reason why we didn't perform well, it was really budgetary constraints. Okay.
Yeah. Tell me how you work with stakeholders such as the Bank of Zambia and the Central Statistics Office in coming up with, I know that you came up with a survey recently. Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we normally conduct actually a survey jointly with the Bank of Zambia, CSO, and ourselves as lead institutions. But within, at national level, we have what is called the National Technical Balance of Payment Statistics Team. That is, we have represented from key ministries, the Minister of Finance, Lusaka Stock Exchange, Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry, Minister of Mines. Really the key ministries are involved in this take. But in terms of leading the surveys, it is us, Bank of Zambia and the Central Statistics Office that take the lead. I don't know if you're interested in knowing maybe what is the objectives of this and what.
Yes, you could tell us what the objective is of this, and also what are some of the findings that came from the survey that you produced after doing all the work with the stakeholders.
Yeah, basically the interest really when we conduct these surveys is really to determine the magnitude. Magnitude to mean what is the value in US dollars of foreign direct investment flows or portfolio investment and other flows, private sector debt and so on. And also we are interested in knowing where is this foreign direct investment going in terms of which sectors or industry are attracting this investment. In addition to that, we go into what is really critical for an investment promotion, for an investment and trade promotion agency like Zambia Development Agency, where we want to get feedback from the investor community on their perceptions vis-a-vis government regulations, statutory instruments which move from time to time, how even the institutions themselves, ZDA, Bank of Zambia, all these regulators like Energy Regulation Board, Bakra Parties and Capital Regulation Agency, how are these government regulators performing in sector and so on. So we rate them out, we see, and from our statistics, what outputs we're able to see, oh, where are the problem institutions, we bring this to their attention so that they look at it. Yeah.
All right.
Now, in terms of key issues, from the most recent, like if I talk about the 2016 survey, really investors are concerned. Firstly, maybe I can start with the high rate bank lending rates. As you may be aware, they are currently averaging 29.5% as at close of December. That is relatively too high by international standards. So I mean, at such a high rate, you really you stifle lending, I mean, of the private sector to be able to expand. Some of the issues relates to, for instance, government domestic borrowing. The problem with government domestic borrowing is that, and maybe how it is done is, they'll go to Bank of Zambia, they'll say we are releasing so much treasury bills at so much, and the tenders for the banking community, because treasury bills are low risk, so rather get money, borrow from the government because it's low risk, than only lend to the private sector. So in a way, you are
right. Still on the issue of interest rates, and I know that we did mention this in the introduction of the program. These have a very important role to play in how the economy performs. We've seen that the Bank of Zambia has reduced interest rates from 14% to 12.5%. What do you think this single act would do to the local business?
Well, first of all, that's really a welcome move, because implicitly it will mean we would see a downward trend in the level of interest rates. So it matters really at which level the policy rate, Bank of Zambia policy rate is. For us as ADA, we would be more comfortable if that rate can actually drop to 1-digit level rather than in 2-digit level, so that we can gradually see, eventually see also the bank lending rates coming at 1-digit below 10%.
All right. You have, as ZDA also have taken submissions, have often made submissions to you in terms of government investment and trade-related issues. How important are these, submissions that you make as ZDA to the government in terms of just making sure that some of your, the interests that you want to push, of course it's investment related, but how important is this, pushing it towards government and hearing what they have to say?
Well, it's extremely important, Chilufya, and I mean, that's the whole key, the main reason why you have to undertake surveys, you have to undertake this survey, so from what is coming out, the issues that are being raised by industry are brought to the attention of policymakers within government. So as ZDA, we prepare what are called quarterly reports and annual reports. These reports go to the board. Every quarter the board sits, we present to them how, as ZDA, we have performed, and also what are the issues from the survey that we have conducted, which are coming from the private sector.
All right. Right. As we wrap up the program, Mr. Sifafula, your word or message to those who are looking to Zambia as a place where they can come and invest, and they've seen this and that, and they've heard this and that. What is your word of encouragement in order for them to come to the, the Zambian investment landscape and be part of the players?
Well, all I would say to the investor community out there is really that the domestic economy, as I've alluded in my preliminary remarks, the outlook is really good. In terms of the investment climate, I've indicated how the various regulatory agencies, institutions are there to support investment from whichever sector. There are no restrictions in Zambia as to which sector you can go into. All the sectors are open. Unlike in some countries, they'll tell you, no, you can't invest in that. as long as you have the money to, you can literally go into any sector which you feel you can make money. So I would encourage them. The investment climate is good. In terms of African ranking, I've indicated we are 7th out of 54 countries, SADC 4th. So really, the climate is good.
All right. Mr. Sifafula, thank you so much for coming through to the program.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much. And we look forward to more interaction with ZNBC.
That's right. Definitely. We'll definitely call you back.
Thank you.
All right. This brings us to the end of the program. I was speaking to Mr. Collins Sifafula, who is Manager Research at the Zambia Development Agency. And today our focus was the investment climate as well as the ease of doing business. And he's given us the statistics that we need to get involved and be a part of growing this wonderful, wonderful Zambian economy. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.